I've said for now 2 years, I'm perfectly fine with an investigation, if Trump's campaign or any campaign, like, colluded or worked with a foreign government to hack his opponent's emails, even if it was Hillary Clinton's emails. Hack emails and get them to a source like WikiLeaks and distribute them, that is a scandal, if that were true. That's treason if a campaign was working with a foreign government. And by the way, this has happened in American history, as Robert Parry, who was a legendary journalist who recently passed away. He was with Consortium News. He reported that Ronald Reagan, literally while running against Jimmy Carter, had worked behind the scenes to make sure that the Iranian hostages weren't released. That was treasonous. But of course, Reagan's a patron saint. So if a campaign is working with a foreign government to hack emails or do anything like that, they should be punished. So I'm not saying there should be no investigation or no penalty if that's true with Trump. What I am saying is it has gotten to the point where we've reincarnated McCarthyism. We have reincarnated McCarthyism, the social media version of McCarthyism. It's like when I watch CNN and MSNBC, and frankly, some independent media that I will not mention, it's like a Cold War reenactment. It's like I just want to put on Rocky IV, which is all about Rocky taking on that evil Russian, and start downing vodka. It's insane what I'm watching. I mean, half the country is poor. We're at record levels of income inequality. If you follow my Twitter or Facebook, you have water contamination all over the country. All over the country, water contamination. And when I say contamination, what I mean is poisoning. People are being poisoned. You've got a gun epidemic, which, as you've seen, the last 2 weeks of what went down in Parkland, Florida, the tragedy there. You have all these things going on, yet anytime I turn on corporate media, and a lot of times, sorry about that, and a lot of times independent media, it's like we're at war. It's like we're at war with a foreign country when our democracy, so-called democracy, is being threatened every day by real threats. So I want to read you a little excerpt. I wrote a piece the other day for Mediaite. I'll repost it after this live so you can read it. I'm going to be writing a few columns here and there. So I wrote a piece. If you didn't notice, CNN actually had a reporter go and ambush a Trump supporter on her lawn. This Trump supporter basically, Russian trolls created like a fake Facebook group, and it got Trump supporters to come into that fake Facebook group, and then it apparently brainwashed those Trump supporters to leave their homes and go create flash mobs on street corners. And apparently this is a threat to our democracy. So let me read you a little bit about what I wrote. This reached a fever pitch, talking about RussiaGate, when CNN reporter Drew Griffin recently performed a ridiculous, loony stunt, confronting one of Trump's voters, or as CNN dubbed it, the unwitting Americans, whose brains were apparently hijacked and bodies uncontrollably lifted into action by Russian trolls. One of the unwitting Americans, I'm quoting, quote, one of the unwitting Americans, Trump supporters who helped the Russian internet trolls infiltrate U.S. communities by spreading Russian-made messages without knowing it. Oh my God. Are you scared shitless? Because I am. Oh my God. These unwitting Americans, Trump supporters who helped the Russian internet trolls infiltrate U.S. communities. And I want to make something very, very clear. I'm not a Trump supporter. I know that when I tweet this, when I post these things, I'm attacked by the Hillbots. Oh, you're a Kremlin puppet. You're working for Trump. I don't like Trump, and I'm going to get to Trump in a little bit. I think he's a danger to America. But I also don't like a Red Scare. I also don't like beating the drum for actions and war with a nuclear power with a lunatic president. I'm talking about Putin. So I wrote, here's the basics of what happened with CNN's reporter. Russian trolls started a pro-Trump Facebook group, plastered anti-Hillary stuff all over it, and after Trump voters entered the group, trolls convinced them to start pro-Trump flash mobs on their street corners. So let me get this straight. Voters like the older woman Griffin essentially cornered on her lawn who were already voting for Trump. Let me repeat. We're already voting for Trump. Were duped into joining a Russian troll-created Facebook group? This brainwashed them and caused them to go yell on street corners at passing cars to vote for Trump, and presumably affected the outcome of the election? If you followed my reporting and commentary, you know I'm no Trump supporter. But in what world is this type of journalism not the cable version of McCarthyism? Is it a good thing that Russian trolls were able to deploy propaganda and fake news on Facebook and other social media? No, it's not a good thing. Is it the biggest scandal of the 21st century? Or as Thomas Friedman, that idiot New York Times columnist, said, he compared it to Pearl Harbor or 9/11? What? So let me get this straight, and I wrote this in the piece. You have David Brock, who ran Hillary Clinton's super PAC, correct the record, who literally has an army of paid bots and trolls that go out and spread disinformation about candidates like Bernie Sanders, who go out and spread disinformation, frankly, about journalists. During my last few months, obviously you all know what went on with me. If you want to know more about that, I did a video last night. You could go watch it. I addressed everything. David Brock bots were going after me and spreading disinformation about me. You have David Brock bots that send out fake information about Bernie Sanders, about Jane Sanders, about Keith Ellison, about Nina Turner. Is this not a threat to our democracy? Sorry, folks. Is that not a threat to our democracy? I guess it's not. Hold on. I don't have my tripod. I guess it's not a threat to democracy if the disinformation is in favor of the establishment candidate. I guess it's only a threat to democracy and our basic humanity and ability to live as a society if it's coming from a Russian government against Hillary Clinton. And I want to make something clear. I don't think it's there's no doubt Russia, their trolls, bots, probably through the government, did push through an excessive amount of propaganda, fake news on social media platforms. I'm not denying that. People that deny that at this point, you're wrong. I mean, there were Russian bots, there were Russian trolls. We just have to state the facts. But this hysteria on CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, you have Rachel Maddow literally almost breaking down on MSNBC about Robert Mueller, who, by the way, Robert Mueller is not a good guy. He helped George W. Bush launch us into the Iraq War. He was the FBI director after 9/11 that rounded about 1,000 Muslims and took them in for questioning without no reason to. He also helped George W. Bush cover up the fact that George W. Bush fucked up and didn't read serious intelligence before 9/11. Memos, bin Laden primed to strike using airplanes. And share this video, everybody. Facebook's new algorithm's not so friendly to people like me. And in the future, as we get ready to launch a new company, which I'm going to get to a little bit later, we will be doing more live streams on an actual website, not only on Facebook, not only on YouTube, but on a site that you will hopefully subscribe at. So you got Rachel Maddow is like almost hysterical. Finally, somebody's defending us against Russia. Honestly, a big reason that the Cold War started in the first place, I encourage all of you to watch Oliver Stone's The Untold Story of the United States. It's on Netflix. Part of the Cold War was fake news and hysteria prompted up by Congress people stoking about a fake Russian scare. You had fake stuff coming from Harry Truman, the president at the time, about Russia. A lot of fake news, if you want to call it that, back then. was about Russia and really hyping up the fear of Russia and their evilness, when the real threat was not to the degree that our government was telling. And I'm not saying Russia's a great place to be. Vladimir Putin is not a friend of the United States. He has been behind killing journalists. But what I am saying is, when our corporate media, instead of covering people being poisoned in Flint, in North Carolina, in East Chicago, now in Arizona, now in Massachusetts, follow my Twitter every day. I post about all the water contamination going around the country. They don't cover that. The Parkland school shooting, that was like, technically there's been, I believe, 18 school shootings, but some of them were like suicides, some of them were accidents. There's been over 10 intentional school shootings this year. This year, that did not get coverage. Parkland was the first one that's gotten serious coverage. You know, it gets to the point where you feel like you're kind of watching, like if you're a man watching this, or even a woman. I used to watch the WWF when I was a kid, like the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. I used to love wrestling. And I didn't, I guess I knew it was fake at first, but I used to love it. I guess it's like a male version of a soap opera for men. And a lot of women actually like WWF too. And I didn't care that it's fake. But honestly, CNN, MSNBC, it's getting to the point where it's like scripted wrestling. It's not real, folks. You had a woman on MSNBC, Nicole Wallace, have a whole segment with a New York Times columnist pretending that the United States has not interfered in other countries' elections, or the United States has not literally armed terrorists to topple democratically elected governments. How do you think bin Laden was created? How do you think bin Laden was created? We armed the Afghan insurgents against Russia. Hello? So all I am seeing is a hysteria at the expense of real news. Again, have your investigation. If you want to give updates on MSNBC and CNN on it every day, or the New York Times, that's great. But do we have to? Do we have to, lose our collective shit over the fact that Russian bots created some Facebook groups? Listen, I covered 40 to 50 Trump rallies. I'm still in therapy after covering those 40, 50 to Trump rallies. And I love these people who say I'm pro-Trump, or I'm working for Trump. Did you see my videos from Trump rallies that went viral when I was at the Young Turks? I wasn't providing Trump supporters tea. I was challenging them, just like I challenged Clinton supporters. So what I'm saying is, you're not going to get the real news from CNN, MSNBC, and frankly, certain independent media that has now decided that their new formula is day after day after day, Trump hysteria and Russia hysteria. Now, if it comes out, this is a big if, and I think Glenn Greenwald has said this too, if it comes out that the Trump campaign, if we could prove it, worked with the Russian government or intermediaries for the Russian government to hack DNC emails or John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair's emails, I 100% agree. Then let's have a freaking media meltdown, because that's treason. But there's no proof of that, even though Rachel Maddow wants it to be true. There's no proof. And I have to be fair. I don't care if it's Trump or anyone else. Let's stop talking about collusion when we don't have evidence of collusion. Is it questionable that Trump's son met with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower? Yes. Is that should we put him on the guillotine? No. And by the way, part of my column, and my business partner Jen has been put the column in the comments. Jen Dies, by the way. I mean, this woman deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. She has stood by me in these dark times. She's an amazing woman, and she's now helping me to launch a company, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. But all these people are freaking out about, our democracy is at risk, our democracy. I didn't hear that when 200,000 people were purged off the rolls during the New York primary, which, reminder, if you're not subscribed to my Patreon, Chapter 4 on the unprecedented election fraud of 2016 is going to be released Monday, exclusively for patrons. I'm going to be releasing it for everybody at a later date, patrons are going to be getting chapters going forward first. So please, patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. I did not hear Rachel Maddow saying our democracy is under attack when 200,000 were purged in New York. I did not hear, David Frum, that idiot who led us into Iraq, but now MSNBC is rehabilitating along with Bill Kristol. David Frum writes a piece for The Atlantic, America is under attack and our president doesn't care. Well, where were you, David Frum, when the governor of Rhode Island, Gina Raimondo, who is BFF with Hillary Clinton, shut down 2/3 of the polling stations in Rhode Island to help Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders? Bernie still won by 12. Where was any of these people when the Republican Party shut down 70% of the polling places in Maricopa County in Arizona during the Democratic primary, leading to, in some cases, 8-hour lines? I didn't hear a damn word. Where were all these people in California when the Secretary of State, a Hillary Clinton ally, was intentionally sending out false mailers to confuse people? Where were all these people in 2016 and before when the Kansas Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, who now wants to run for governor of Kansas, where were they when he was leading the very, very illegal cross-check program, which has gotten no coverage in mainstream media and basically tries to make it seem like there's rampant voter fraud by saying there's 2 or 3 Jordan Charitons around the country when there's not, and then tossing out the actual Jordan Chariton off the rolls. I didn't see this mass hysteria when real election fraud was going on. I'm sorry, folks. Erica, how can the media ignore Flint? I'm going to tell you in a little bit because I'm getting to Flint. I'm sorry, but enough with the RussiaGate. And I don't really care if people call me a Kremlin puppet or any of this bullshit. And like I said, I've been consistent. I've said, have the investigation. I agree, have the investigation. I don't agree with making Robert Mueller seem like, God. He's not a good guy. Look him up and what he did for George W. Bush. And don't even get me started. When I was away, all these people are like, oh, we miss George Bush. If only we had George Bush now that we have Donald Trump. Last time I checked, Trump hasn't launched a fake war yet. They killed nearly 4,000 U.S. citizens, killed and injured 100,000 innocent Iraqis. I don't think Trump did that yet. And by the way, Chapter 2, which is already out, I already have 3 chapters out. Chapter 1 of my book, Corporate Con Job, is about how the mainstream media blackout on Bernie Sanders' campaign. I was there. I covered it. I have behind-the-scenes information, including an email I got from Jake Tapper during the campaign where he said it was off the record. I have Chapter 2 is about what really created Trump. I got news for you. It was something Bill Clinton did in the 1990s. Chapter 3 is all about covering Queen Hillary's campaign. And now Chapter 4 is going to be on the election fraud, voter suppression. Share this video. Let's get it out. I know it's Saturday, but it's important.